to record this for replay for those people that are part of the Bonfire community and they love to up their skills in their professional careers. Either you're in a career right now and you want to learn leadership skills, communication skills, how do you manage a team, how do you stay organized, time management, just mind management, possibility of, am I in the right space within my own corporation that I could navigate in a different direction? And then we also help people that are in the career journey where they're saying, I'd love to pivot. I'd love to move. I want to find that new career. Maybe they're not in a career yet. They want to start that process. All of the wonderful mappings of our career journey, we talk about that here on this call. And so we do this once a month, and once a month is what is it, Pam? We're the second Thursday of the month at noon.
Yes.
I was on vacation last week. So for some reason, I thought this was the first Thursday and I'm like, oh, I got a whole week to go. No.
Well, it is kind of early this month because the first was Thursday. So it's the 8th. So it's the second Thursday.
I'm glad. So actually, I think Kara, one of our coaches reminded me, she said, Tina Marie, it's happened to be this week. You're doing the Career Professionals call. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Where are you? So I know that Ryan's getting our guest on. Thank you everybody for being here. We also have the ability for people to type in questions and send ahead some questions. I know that I was working with some of my coaching clients and wanted to start with those things that they have added in the process. So one, congratulations goes out to one of our own clients. Her name's Christy, and Christy Gonzalez did a great job following our protocol and working with her coach is myself. I'd say that we've got so many wonderful coaches. In fact, Coach Kara, you're here with us today. Thank you so much. And Coach Michael, he's here. And so Christy joined our program in early June. She talked to us at the very end of May and joined us in June, and we got busy. And the first thing we needed to do is help her create her value and her worth statement and understanding what she brings to the job market. She'd been in private schools, helping them with their own development and bringing in families and then curriculum and events and things of that nature inside private schools in the Rio Grande Valley. So in Texas, we have this wonderful shape of a state, and down in the very basin of it, there's a Rio Grande Valley. And so being in that workforce and having been brought up there, what I learned very quickly is that she had some limiting beliefs that were plaguing her decision making and her viewpoint of her value. And when we work with our clients, we get their resume. What do you have now? We look at their LinkedIn, their online profiling. We understand their job history as much as we can through interview processing. And then we do something called skills harvesting. And in skills harvesting, we make sure that we understand as coaches, what all do they have capacity for and where would they love to grow? And so in that first communication with Christy, I realized that she was not only in a position that was undervaluing her and underutilizing her, she was definitely underpaid. Highly underpaid. Now, sometimes that's an ouch statement whenever your coach does the evaluation with you and says, I think you could be making a whole lot more. And then it also can create doubt in the client who's going, how do you know I can create more? I'm in Brownsville. You don't know the market here. And so we did push the envelope in her own belief systems and got busy, rewrote her resume, LinkedIn profile, did job searches, keyword searches, understood how to research and where does she truly want to be, what would she love is one of our statements here. And this past week, while I was on vacation, she received an offer letter from the number 2 organization on her list. We always have a top 10 list of companies you'd love to work for. And number 1 wasn't hiring. Number 2, we went for it. She got the interview, she got the job offer, and she moved from $46,000 in salary to $80,000. And so I share that because it happened in 5 weeks. Now, people will say all results don't aren't the same results you can expect. And what I can tell you is that across the board here at Bonfire, and Kara, you could also chime in, these results happen really fast when you follow the protocol and the strategies. In fact, while I'm looking for my wonderful guest who I want to introduce to you, because I'm wondering if she's having technical difficulty getting on, is Kara, could you share about some of your clients? Because you've worked with, Ashley was the same type of situation, right?
Hey, Tina Marie, can you check the waiting room, maybe?
I am totally looking at the waiting room and I see nobody there. Just letting you know. Go ahead, Kara. I can't hear you, Kara. Yeah. Want to hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
That is so weird. My
Yeah.
headphones are plugged in, but you can't hear me. Okay. So Ashley and I started working together, and within the first couple of sessions, we did the 3-part list. We did the skills harvesting. We did the top 10. We went through that whole process. We talked about addressing your searches with energy, with high energy, with an energy richness. And she created her list, and literally within a matter of 4 weeks, she not only found what she is considering her perfect job, she absolutely loves it, but it was making $10 more an hour than what she had put down as what she wanted. So, I mean, within 4 weeks, she is still in a job and she still absolutely loves it. It's amazing.
It is. And we blow the mind of many people here, which is why we want you here on the Career Professionals Call. So I'm going to tell you what we're going to be talking about today. Linda, our guest, is still navigating the ethers of bits and bytes called Zoom and getting in. So I'm trusting because we are totally out of Mercury retrograde, and here she comes. We're out of Mercury retrograde now, so those technical difficulties can be in the past. Because woohoo, was it a crazy May and June. Hello, Linda. Hello, Linda. I'm going to introduce you. Welcome to the Bonfire Coaching Career Professionals Call. As I was saying, we do this each month. And today, what we're talking about with our wonderful guest, I can't wait to have this discussion with her. Linda's a dear friend. She's a mastermind partner, and I've gotten to know her and what she does in the world, and it's impressive. What I realize is that the impact she has with the clients that she works with, it's hard to articulate. And even Linda said, yeah, it's hard for people to really understand the depth at which I work with people here. So you're going to learn it because she's going to be sharing her wisdom. Linda is an association executive, and that's with over 20 years of experience. So she helps run boards. She helps run associations. She helps fuel those associations with wonderful resources. Linda believes in the power of connections, and she has launched her startup in an established environment and is kicking booty, I want to say. And she has her own company called Guiled Associates, and she brings the knowledge to you of the talent that she has for understanding part-time professionals. Now, we're going to have a different type of communication here today, helping you understand how to first navigate the interview to hire process with more strategy, more energy, and definitely more professionalism so that you get the job right. We want you to stand out and be memorable. And then she's going to help you understand what questions you need to ask through your interview and even in your career. So currently, if you're in a career and you're not even looking to get out of it, have you ever thought that maybe you're stuck? Have you ever thought, are they going to promote me? Are they going to recognize my efforts? Well, you need to advocate internal in your own job and not wait. We're going to give you some advocacy for yourself. And then we're also going to move the journey into understanding how to see, is part-time something that is in your future, or maybe something that you're interested right now. So Linda, thanks for being our guest here today on the Bonfire Career Professionals Call.
Thanks for having me. I apologize for being late. The beauty of different links floating around. So
yeah, it happens, man. I knew that the bits and bytes were going to join up and we'd be able to see your lovely face and have this great conversation.
I love technology. You can text people at the same time. Life is great.
It is. Text, call, get her here. So, anyway. I know that you and I had connected prior, and you get to see a lot of the struggles and challenges that people have through the interview to hire process. And so I was thinking that we can dissect that. a bit. And so also our guests here today, our audience, if you find through our communications or something comes to mind or to heart already, and you have a question for us, please utilize the chat. And this is a dynamic conversation. This is not just you listening to these talking heads, even though that's another way to do it. We want you to be able to take away value that you can input into your life today, okay? So the chat is open for you guys. And if there's any, mic drop type wisdom that you go, oh, that one really hit, take a note here. You can also put that in the chat just so other people know what's inspiring to you. So Linda, the interview to hire process, it's changed a bit.
It has.
Changed a bit. Where would you love to start? I know you know so much and have experienced so much with the
as do you. I actually think we start at the beginning, and so you've been asked to come in for an interview, and before you go in, you actually have to ask some questions, because if you don't know who you're interviewing with, then you actually can't prepare. And it's going to be very different if you're in a small company versus a large company. With a large company, you may not be starting with your supervisor.
Right.
Maybe starting with HR, and that can change your dynamic. So that's my number one starting point is, where are you interviewing? Are you interviewing at the company? Are you interviewing by Zoom?
Mm-hmm.
And
so that would sound like, because typically we are speaking with a recruiter or somebody internal that has been tasked with locating the resources and doing that introductory orientation and setting up the interview. Right?
Exactly.
And so you would say, help me understand what the interview process is going to look like, how it's going to be mapped, what the flow is going to look like. And then in that, you're saying that they need to ask for who specifically will I be interviewing at what stages, and do the best if we can to find names.
Names and understand the process, because you hear stories of people that are interviewing for 4 and 5 hours, and other interviews could be a half an hour. So if you don't plan appropriately and suddenly you're like, oh my goodness, I have something else I'm supposed to be at.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that feeling? It's a job you love, and you have another appointment.
So I gotta go. It's very VIP. I'm so busy. I gotta go. No, you don't want to be that person.
But yeah, I mean, and I think to Tina Marie's point of finding out who you're speaking with, you can do some research on them and understand, are they new to the company? Have they been there a long time? Is there a change? What are some of those dynamics? Because sometimes it's a whole new department that you're interviewing with, right? And other times it's the person that's been there 30 years, but they only are really working with the hiring, and they're not your supervisor. So I think we skipped that part.
Yeah. And give yourself some time to do this. So I've had some clients that are thrust into the hiring process and an interview where they get the connection in the morning and they go, do you have time for an interview this afternoon? And that can sound really romantic, like they want you. And you're like, yeah, I'm great. Give yourself time, because if you're already in a position and you're trying to fit it in during your lunch break, how much time do you have to do the research and the stalking of your hiring of the people that are going to be interviewing you, right? So give yourself some time. And you do have that capacity. Don't think that you need to jump through fiery hoops to agree with the timetable of the people in front of you. Take control of the hiring process, because this is your future, not just theirs.
And Karen just posted in the chat, and I think it's such a great point. She said she unknowingly walked into a panel presentation, and I've done those for our company, and those can actually be a lot of fun if you do it right, but not if you're not expecting it. So, again, that whole process and what to expect of, is this the first interview of many? Or is it round 1 to round 2 to round 3? I think is really important. And as you said, and they've been stalking you. So Tina Marie actually said something really great. She's like, so you have time to stalk them. They've already been stalking you. So they've looked at any social that you have.
Yeah, clean up your social media if you need to clean up your social media.
Yeah, make sure things match. That is a really important thing, because they will ask you if there's something that's on your LinkedIn that's not on your resume, they can ask you about it.
Mhm.
Completely. And yeah, if things don't match and there's not a good reason for it, you know.
And in the
So-
Zoom interview, what's interesting is, so I worked with this one gentleman, his name's Lucas, and he's working in a spare room in their home. And in that spare room, because he's also a musician, there is his drum set. And so for the interview with the recruiter, I said, could you just position the camera away from the drum set and things like that? Because it is his cool factor. I get that. Yet let's just make it about Lucas, not about his ulterior ego back there. And so he did that. But whenever he came down to the hiring manager, we did some research on the hiring manager, and the hiring manager plays guitar. So we found out all this information. I'm like, this is the time you move your camera back, put the drum set in the background. So this is strategic, man. You're dating.
And actually along those same lines, if it's by Zoom, what do you show up on camera as? So I know when I do a lot of meetings, we have people that come on as, you know, they might have a nickname that they're by, or may just still say iPhone, or
yeah, this neat.
someone actually had done it for one of my meetings, changed it to Bad Bunny based on a joke with and he went onto a school function and it said Bad Bunny, and he was like, logged off. He didn't have his camera on. But imagine if that's an interview. It's a one-on-one. So log in advance, see how everything looks. You know, log into another Zoom, like use a personal one and check that out if you're doing Zoom, and say, what is the other person going to see of me when they come on? Because especially with laptops or iPads, you're changing, at least we are, moving around a lot. And what's in my background? You know, I kind of looking right now, I'm like, what is in my background? I changed desks for this call. There's construction outside my window. So
yeah. Well, great advice. And so let's move into interview questions. What are some of those interview questions that you would ask your clients that work with you, Linda, that they must be able to, one, answer, and then also ask, because there's two different levels?
Yeah, so I was thinking to start with from questions to give people to ask the interviewer. And if you're looking at something that is part-time, you know, one question that we talked about is, why have you structured this position as part-time? Mm-hmm. For our perspective, you'd like to know that it's intentional. Like if you're looking for a long-term relationship and you want a reduced number of hours, you really don't want the person kind of saying, well, I was kind of hoping to get anyone, and full-time, part-time, it doesn't really matter. That intentionality from them is going to help you understand a lot more about how they work. Yeah. And so don't be afraid to ask about why it is and what are they hoped to gain from that.
Yeah. How long has it been posted? Who was in the position prior? What worked with that person? What worked in the past in the position? What hasn't worked? What are you looking to improve in this position?
What gaps are there?
Totally. What are the gaps? Explain that a little bit more, Linda, because gaps can be different impressions of that word.
Yeah, so gap, you can see it as different ways, but sometimes it's a skill set that's the gap. So a good example in my team at one point, we had an organization that you had to research for people to become a member. And I had a staff member, terrific staff member. So my next statement's not a negative. And I watched as a project just didn't happen. And I finally said to her, why are you not doing this? And she's like, I thought I liked research, but I don't. And I had actually someone on staff that was part-time. Okay, Carla loves research. Let's make that match. But if I didn't, that might be somewhere that I would have a gap in my team that they realize, hey, there's a real need to fill that with someone that really enjoys it and is going to do a good job of it. So, you know, where were they seeing some work not happening the way they want? And it's not a negative. It's not saying someone's not doing a great job. I think one of the reasons a company might hire part-time, and I'll take that step back, is that they've been looking for a unicorn, especially a small business. It's, hey, can you do accounting? Can you design some flyers? Can you do customer outreach? And, you know, and by the way, you have to always be nice, and you're on Zoom half the time. And why don't you have any time to get anything done? And you need to learn this new software. And something sometimes has to give, and they might be like, well, the design doesn't quite fit in there. So let's move that to someone dedicated. You know, so where were they seeing that their staff doesn't fill something? So that's kind of what I mean by a gap in knowledge or resources for them.
Cool, thank you. And so I also hear that we, as people who are interviewing the candidate, need to take the ownership over asking about the job description in more detail.
Yep,
Mhm.
absolutely.
And owning that, process of what you're truly saying yes to. Wouldn't it be awful if you have the job description and you don't go into the depth about what success looks like or what that expectancy is, and you start the job and realize it's something completely different and you didn't have those questions?
Exactly. And I think, to your point, like a great way to walk me through a typical project, walk me through a typical day, and help me to understand the arc, and if you're stalking the company and they've done some press releases, for example, say they have a new product or service that they've just released, you might ask them, what would be my role with something like this? Now, obviously you have to know whether or not you'd be anywhere near it. If it's a manufacturing company and you're in production, you may not have been on some side of it if it was the engineering side. But I think that's, have them show that you're interested in them. Sometimes how you phrase that question too, by, hey, I did research here. What would be my role in the marketing of this? So what would be my role in the accounting?
Definitely. And also want to say, if any questions are coming through that you've either been asked in an interview, that could also be contributed in the chat, or if there are any questions that you've been asked in an interview that you did not know how to answer, be prepared. We can talk about those too from an audience standpoint. There was a gentleman who came in and he interviewed for one of the positions here of office coordinator at our firm here at Bonfire. A very nice looking gentleman, very well poised in his resume and in person. And the first question that I ask for all of our candidates, and so if you ever interview here, you'll be prepared to answer this, is so what does my company do? Because you're in front of the CEO right now and she's going to want to know what you know about her company. And this gentleman could not answer that question. He gave a stab at it because the word coaching is in our name. So I guess that gives you a little bit of a hint. However, he didn't have a specific, and on our website, it's very specific. And so I even asked him, I said, did you go to the website and did you do any research about the company before you came here today? And he said, no, ma'am, I'm sorry, I didn't. And I said, that's awesome. I wish you the best in your job search. Our interview is completed. Thank you so much. And so our interview literally lasted possibly 2 minutes. So you need to be completely prepared for your interview and understand the firm, their values, their mission statement, the people that are there. Like you said, Linda, any of the big PR things that are in the news right now about that company, be completely rehearsed about it.
And review the job description. Tina Marie touched on that, be familiar with it, but literally review it before you walk in the door. Kara says a great comment. We're interviewing them as much as they are interviewing us, because it has to be a fit on both sides. And so whether you're the interviewer and answering questions, you always want to have some questions to ask them, and because it should be a dialogue.
Completely. Even if you go in with nerves, like many of us do. I mean, like meeting new people, it's like, it's a little anxious making, what we do with our clients is we help you get in state before you go in, so that you have your breath about you, you have your shoulders back, you're chill, you're not so relaxed that you look like, I got this, I'm a shoo-in. We're not asking you that. It's that you're like, you're present, and I wanted to ask Linda, whenever you're working with your professionals, how do you help them understand their energy and their professionalism going into the interview?
It's funny, that's not as much where I work on, but I 100% know where you're coming from with that. And because it's something I look for in how they present themselves. And that, for us, when we hire, our clients are high level executives for the most part, especially on the association side. And I look at, do they walk, are they on time? Are they dressed professionally? And, that it can be a question that you can ask the recruiter, is what's the style of dress for the company, but always dress a step above it.
Always.
Always.
I think, I was trained that way as a lady, going into like an evening thing. It's like, always look great. Like you want to outdress.
But I also think it gives you confidence. And one of the things that I've just witnessed in general is when someone is in an environment and they don't feel good about how they're dressed compared to everyone else, and especially if they are underdressed, I think it takes you down a peg. And it takes you down a peg in your confidence level because, ooh, they have a suit on. And I watched this one time at a meeting with someone, he's senior. He didn't know everyone was wearing ties. And he was like, and he was I was like, you're fine. No one's going to comment on you. You're great. But you could see, and he wasn't even being interviewed. It was just literally an attendee. So exactly, have that energy. I like that. I love to do my research and stalking in advance.
Exactly. SYD shared many times, third-party recruiters are in touch with you. I'd love to do my research and stalking in advance. They don't give you that information. It's true. They don't. I mean, they don't take time. I mean, if you think of a recruiter, their job is arduous. I mean, it's a lot of moving parts. And most recruiting firms have the demand that their recruiters are producing so many calls and so many connection points that they're flying at the seat of their pants here. So they don't usually have the great recruiters will help you that way. That it's not normal. It's not normal. Yeah.
But hopefully by the time you get to the interview, you're going to be able to ask some questions. I don't know if any recruiter would send you to a company without you knowing the name of the company. I would hope that that's not the case.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. There's a great question that I ask my director levels and above, because it's primary, the people that I work with. And then we have 10 other coaches here at Bonfire, which is awesome. Is what does the success of this position look like? Take me to the place where you've gone out 3, 6, 12 months. You reflect back on your hiring decision. You go, wow, I made a great hiring decision there. Help me understand what it looks like to have that the success of this position is definitely cemented in. And you want to hear their vision. You want to hear their expectancy. And that may catch them off guard. So be okay with them coming up with the answer. You want to know that because that's what they're going to be gauging your success by. And it also gives them the possible that, they may not have even considered what does success of this job look like. They may just be going, I have a puzzle piece. Does it fit? Right, Linda?
Absolutely. I think that's such an awesome question. I think another question that can catch companies off guard, especially a small company, is really how do you define your company culture? And although it's buzzwords, you can kind of stop and say, well, how do I explain that? And it's such an important piece for the person being hired to understand how you interact. And Tina Marie and I were talking that part-time can feel like remote too, of the person, even if a part-time is in the office, they're not there all the time. So how are they staying connected to the rest of their teammates? And if you're remote and other people are in the office, how are those connections being made? And to me, that is a part of your culture, is how do they communicate with one another? Do people make phone calls? Do they do drop-ins in their office? And, are they going out for lunch or having a golf outing? Or we have dogs in our office. So, one of our company cultures is we do walk and talks just because the dogs need to go out and we need to stretch our legs, which is maybe a little bit different for other environments. And I have someone remote, and it's how do I keep her connected because she can't go for a walk and talk with the dogs. Right. I mean, we could, I guess, on Zoom, it'd be weird. So
it sounds like your dogs are taking you for a walk. So
they're not well scheduled. So
yes. And so I love this concept. Whenever I started learning more of what Linda does in our world and having a depth of understanding that there is a huge part-time industry, professional part-time, not like I need a part-time gig to supplement my income. It's people that are at the stage of their life and their careers where they say, I have the possibility now to balance my life and have some free time, and I want to sustain my lifestyle or keep income coming in a part-time fashion. And sometimes, often we're going to get to that place in our career where our value and our rate to industry is higher because we're no longer novice, we're no longer associate or entry level. We are now in that higher end spectrum of earning that we can reduce our hours and be a professional part-timer. So Linda, this is, you literally brought an awareness to me that I hadn't yet conceived or really put mindfulness to. And we just touched on a little bit there, which was, if you're part-time, you're not there 100% of the time that the rest of the staff is. How do you stay in communication? How do you stay abreast of the down the hallway communications that have happened or projects moving forward, and not feel like you're the third wheel or the castaway or the stepchild of the organization? And so as professionals in a professional part-time role, because you've selected that, we have responsibility on how do we collaborate with our employer, correct?
Correct. And although it sometimes might feel like the employer needs to be the one doing the communicating, I think a really strong individual understands that they need to remind their employer that they weren't there, and check in. And one question, especially if things are project, is, will I be solely responsible? Am I autonomous for this? Or is there a backup? For example, I had someone that did accounting in our office, and sometimes things happened when she wasn't scheduled to work, no matter how much we planned. We were supposed to get packets in from other people for finances for a meeting. She would do as much as she can, but there needed to be a handoff. So when she came back in, she would always come, what did I miss? I'm planning to start here. Is that still a good spot to start? So it wasn't that she didn't own her own project, but she understood that, hey, there's a little bit of ebb and flow the way this company works. Whereas, a design project, say if someone's, for example, maybe doing a website design for someone, they may not need that extra backup in the same ebb and flow. Someone may be able to batch the work for them and say, hey, these updates need to be done when the next time you're in. So I think that's a really big thing. And you can ask that question is, what's a typical project? Walk me through how that will work. Who will be involved? And again, that communication piece of how they communicate. As an old person, I don't always want everything by text. But I know that younger staff do a lot by text, and other people do things by Slack. But and I think I want to touch on one thing in the job description is, if you're looking to work part-time and there's one area of that job description that you can blow it out of the water, find out how much of the job revolves around that.
Exactly.
Because you might find that it's 5%, but it sounded good. Or is it 90%? And you're going to be really happy.
Exactly. I'm going to shoot over to a question that Sue has here. In fact, I don't think I finished SYD. You'd asked, whenever you're wanting to do the stalking, the research in advance of your potential employer, and you're asking recruiters this information, you could feel uncomfortable if they don't have the information. However, I hear that you don't want to sound demanding in asking these things. So we with grace, we see what the recruiter does know. And then if they can share the names of people, we do that research on our own as much as we can. And then, of course, come prepared with questions. Somebody that I worked with recently asked, okay, so I have these questions that I want to ask through the interview process. Do I bring them with me? And I'm like, yes, come absolutely prepared. Have a folder, have a clipboard, have something that, have a portfolio that shows that you are coming prepared. This is, like Linda said, this is an interaction. Sue says, often they're asking questions to see how we fit in culturally. Of course, you also want to ask questions on how you fit in culturally with the core values of the organization and the department. And Sue says, I've had questions about my strengths and weaknesses and also how I handle difficult or challenging situations. These can be hard to answer. So fortunately, I did some research on my own work history to pinpoint some examples of those. Lying is not an option, as I'm human and make mistakes completely. So this lends to one of the framework pieces that we have in our career coaching methodology, which is called Epic Stories. And in our Epic Story framework, what we help you do, and for those that are coaching with us, this is what you're working with your coach through, is that we want to understand your core values and your big belief systems on how you operate. And then there's a secondary piece, which is what are those places you've demonstrated those, or where they come up as a challenge or a problem set you had to come in and participate as a team member or a solo individual contributor to solve a problem. And what was that outcome? So we help you build a story. And Linda, you and I know we work with Mike Kim, and we know that stories are easy to remember. And if you're not telling a story through your interview, you're just going to be a run-of-the-mill candidate. They're not going to have an emotional connection to you, and they're more than likely not going to choose you, right? So we want you to formulate stories based on your work history. Good job, Sue, so that they can remember who you are, right? And you've helped your clients with that as well, right,
Yeah.
Linda?
I just want to touch on that too. I mean, you never want to lie.
No.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Because as someone said earlier, it's a two-way interview. And if, they're looking to make sure that the dynamics are going to work well within their environment. And yes, I mean, I think we've all been in situations where the person knew the right thing to say. And I remember my first boss was like that. She answered all the questions along those lines and did none of them.
Mm-hmm.
And was also fired during my tenure there. So there you go. But I think the more you understand yourself, because sometimes what people are doing when they're asking those questions too, is trying to figure out how they're balancing their teams. Mm-hmm. So, whether you think people do the DISC, I know some people do some of the different whether it's DISC, personality tests before they will even bring you in for an interview, because they don't want necessarily, if I'm going to run a strong company, ultimately I don't want everyone like me.
No.
Need to be able to interact well with you. So I think if you think about it from like, hey, they're just trying to get that great information and not trip you up. This is not hopefully is not an interrogation, although sometimes I think some interviews feel that way.
Yeah.
But
yeah, in that case, if it feels like, if your nervous system is feeling like you're getting a lot coming at you. In fact, Kara, whenever you were in that panel discussion, how did it go? How did you feel through that?
At first, I was extremely nervous, but it turned into more of a conversation. It wasn't question, question, question. It was question, conversation, question, conversation. So I had the epic stories in my background prepared to share. It's just I wasn't prepared to share it in that format. And it turned out fine. Mm-hmm. I got the job.
Yeah, you did.
Awesome. And it was a good fit, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I think what's interesting with the panel presentation, the panel style probably was you saw their dynamics too. Mm-hmm. And how they interacted with one another. Because
actually, one of the questions I like to ask is, so what is it that you like working about? What is it that you like about working here? Mm-hmm. Why is it that you enjoy being here? And that's actually helped me make a decision on whether or not I wanted to work for that company or not. It really did.
There you go.
I also think in the converse, if you can figure out how to phrase it and not make it sound good, is what do you not enjoy as much about the role? Because sometimes that can be, if that's your supervisor, that can be what you're going to be working on. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have to be like you're not trying to get dirt on the company. It's not a negative, but it's like, the Kara I was talking about that didn't enjoy doing the research on the membership, right? She loved other things and that would come across, but that was not her strength and not her enjoyment. So if she were hiring someone, she'd be like, someone that likes that would be really good.
Yes. And as a language tool that you could use in that, so it doesn't sound negative or, disparaging in any way, is that we get to use words that we call above the line words. So you could say, just so I understand, what are some of those places that haven't worked or you'd like to improve or have felt stuck or maybe not as progressive, so that we can, help me give a vision of what we can do together to improve that. So whenever we say together, us, team, we, those types of words create an energy of bonding through the interview process, and it really helps. I was going to share one of our clients recently. She did go into an interview process with an amazing company. She got the offer, and it happened so fast. And so as it happened so fast, she's like, hold on a second, I don't think I got to answer all my questions. Like, I had all these questions, but I thought I was going to have more interviews. I thought I was going to have more opportunity to interact. Even though she wanted to leap and jump, she's like, oh, this is so great. I said, hold on, we need to pause a bit because you still have questions. So out of those questions that you have, which ones most need to be answered? And we came up with 3. And so I said, that's where you're going to go back first to the recruiter, because the recruiter's that open door that held the hand to get you in front of the hiring managers and the decision makers. So we don't want to just usurp that unless it's already been communicated that I'm the recruiter, I'm out of this now. You're now going to be communicating with the hiring manager. If it's clear, of course, you do that clear pathway. It wasn't clear for her. So I said, let's go to the recruiter and ask the recruiter. I have a few remaining questions. I am saying yes to the position, and I still have some remaining questions that weren't asked through the interview process. Who would I ask these to, and at what time? And so the recruiter was able to say, no, you have freedom to go to the hiring manager. I think those are great questions that you would want to bring up, and let's go ahead and get those handled now. And so if the interview process does go too rapidly for you, you do get the chance to pump the brakes and still ask those questions. You do not want to go in assumption mode. It would be like having a great first date, second date, and then they propose and you say yes. And then you're like, hold on, wait a second. I didn't ask all these questions.
And that's part of where asking, one really great question, if the recruiter doesn't really know the process, is before you leave that first set of interviews, is ask, what are the next steps?
Completely before you leave, please. Yes.
Because, it may be that they're doing a one and done, which honestly, for time-wise of understanding that your time is valuable too, can be really good if they've done a longer process, right? Or they've had you meet with other people. But I think what's going to be interesting as we move forward with so many more people being remote is what you don't get a chance to do in remote and Zoom is sit and watch a dynamic in an office.
Yeah.
So you come in and see, how are, even with Kara doing that panel interview, which a heads up would have been great. I agree, but you get to see that dynamic and Tina Marie talked about energy earlier. It's harder if you're sitting there, if you watch people just walk by and they look stony faced and they look, I got to get this done. And you're like, I don't know if this is how I want, or are they welcoming?
Yeah.
I did temp work in my early career, and I worked for a headhunter for one day. And they do high level. They actually did the president of my university. And everyone came up to me and said, hi, I don't think I've met you. From I don't know if I met the president of the company, but I met VPs down. Anyone that walked past me spoke to me and was welcoming. And it was a fascinating, and I'd been in other companies that they didn't, there's someone new in that cubicle and it didn't matter. Yeah. And so watching that dynamic, if you can, I think, again, if you know yourself and know what you need, I think we didn't actually touch on that of why are you working? Are you someone that loves being by themselves or do you want that interaction with other people, or do you want kind of a blend? Like, hey, I'm good for a while being on and other times not. And what's the environment of the company? Because if you've been used to a company that they jump into each other's offices and they talk to each other, and then you go to another company and they're next door, but they're sending emails. You might go, Is this what I want? Is it filling that need for me?
Awesome. Yes, you do need to know your needs. And so in our framework, we do that. There's your 3-part list, right? Your 3-part list at the very beginning is, what do you want? What are those must-haves? And what are the would-be nices? What are the would-be nices of a career? And then what are your deal breakers? Because if you do not know your deal breakers, if they have like 20 out of 25 musts, and they have like 5 out of 10 of the would-be nices, and they've got one deal breaker, it's called a deal breaker for a reason. It's a deal breaker, meaning I gotta go now. So, love you, I gotta go now.
So Michael posted in the chat, and I'd love to understand what he means by this. I find it most challenging to have multiple back-to-back interviews. Is he talking, are you talking, Michael, like in the same day with the same company, or going between having more than one interview, like you're interviewing with different companies on the same day?
Yeah, I've done a lot of interviews with a lot of organizations, and honestly, the most challenging one where it was, I had a single interview with the same, it was all the interviews were with the same company organization. The first one was an individual, the second one was 2 people, and the third one was 3 people, and the final one was 1 person. And it was all on the same day, back to back to back to back to back. That, I would say that was the most, hands down, the most challenging. And I've done a lot of interviewing with a lot of organizations of all sizes, and that by far was the most challenging energetically, to hold that energy and space of that. Yeah.
Did you know that going in that it might be like that?
I did. I knew all the people, the recruiter. I got information on all the people who were going to be in all those interviews. I researched them, connected on LinkedIn, did research on them, understood their organization, had questions. Even with all of that work, it was still, as you can imagine, difficult to hold that for about 4 hours.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
You know, we had one of our candidates, Beth, she interviewed with SpaceX multiple times. So with SpaceX, they flew her to California. She stayed overnight in a hotel. They brought her in the next morning, and they started interviews at 8 a.m. She didn't, and then she went all day long and and then flew back, was expected to fly back that night to Houston. Because of the exhaustion she had from the day of interviews. It literally lasted 9 hours. Then she stayed in the hotel again because she's like, I just don't even think I can fly home. This is like, I'm like, and whenever she said, you know, there's some difficult questions that are in the interview process nowadays with some companies trying to throw you off your game. You know, Google and Amazon are some of the doozies that they pride themselves, or at least have pride themselves on trying to throw you off. And, you know, we have a list of the Google questions that have been asked in interviews. One was, what do you think will save the future of humanity? Like, whoa, talk about philosophical and off target, you know. Beth was requested to she's a technical documentation specialist, and was going to lead a team at SpaceX. She was asked to deliver, how do you build a lightsaber documentation, and give that entire presentation. She nailed it. She was amazing, and I love it. Now that's collateral for her portfolio. Truth is, their hiring process is really cumbersome, at least the one that we saw. And their job offer for her, she told them what she was coming in at. And she told them at the beginning, I'm going to need at least a 30 to 50% increase. And it's because of the market that she was going to go into. She was going to be moving to California, and it's a higher expense. So whenever you're hiring, whenever you're moving into a new marketplace, you must do your research on cost of living, and you need to make that appropriate jump, and you need to defend it. And we help you with that. And so they came in right at her current pay, and she's in the Houston market, not in the Bay Area. And we went back multiple iterations. I guess somebody that would be new to the industry would have thought it was really great, because they were wanting to give her, I think it was $100 and something thousand in stock in SpaceX. And so she said, we declined, because it was just not that professional organization that we had thought. I was very surprised at how they conducted themselves. I was like, And so they tipped their hat of disorganization, lack of communication on many parts. So watch the interview to hire process, because they are showing you who they truly are. And do you want to work with this organization? And do not come in, something we also caution our candidates with is don't try to be the hero. Whenever you see errors or issues that are core to an organization, sometimes we could think, well, whenever they hire me, I'll get in there and I'll fix this. That's not usually what happens. So we don't want to go in and be the hero. You want to take it for face value, what they're telling you your job role will be. So Linda, what else can we share with?
So Sue actually put a question in the chat. And it says, we have a pretty robust diversity and inclusion focused program at my current company.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be okay to ask if they have employee awareness programs like that? Absolutely. I think you're looking to make sure that it feels like a good fit for you. And, if that's an important thing for you and they don't have it, then that's a value mismatch. And if they don't have it, why? It may be that, hey, we're a small company and we haven't had it as a structured program, but I'd love to hear what they're doing and see how that dialogue feels to you. But don't shy away from something as long as it's asked in a respectful way. And you could say the way you just asked that question is awesome, right? You asked it of us, and I'd say, ask something similar, like, hey, there's been a really great program here. I'd love to hear what you're doing around this topic.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And so what are the questions do you guys have for Linda from the interview to hire process, collaborating with your future employer, understanding what their needs are, communicating what your needs are, communicating while you're not believing you're feeling selfish and demanding, any other questions that you have? I want to give you space to ask those as well. And thank you to all of our guests and our clients here.
I have a question, I guess.
Yeah.
Just because this is something that's so common, everybody always wants to know, how do you talk about money? Whether they ask you, what are you looking to make, or what were you making at your last job or your current job, or it's you wanting to know something.
The range of pay and the position.
Right.
So Linda, you want to go for that one first, or me?
Sure. I personally don't believe that what I made at a previous position or what someone made at a previous position is anyone's business. Because it's not, to me, that's not a relevant question. A relevant question is, what are you expecting to make? Or to ask about the range, because again, if looking at what Tina Marie was talking about, if someone came and is looking to make $150,000 and your budget's 70, I might as well stop before you start. If I don't have it in my budget, I'm not sure where I'm going to make up that difference. I don't want to waste your time or theirs. But what if you were making 70 and I can pay you 150,000 and that's the range, and you have the skills? You might have been at a startup. You might have taken 2 years off. You might have been helping a family member out of a bind. But it doesn't really matter. You might be changing markets. You might have been grossly underpaid.
Right. I was going to say, as an example, given Christy, who we started off our today's connection with, as the case that we're in right now, is that had they asked her what her current salary is, that's a little embarrassing for her, because she knew that she was worth more. Her coach is also telling her this. And so we don't want to pigeonhole her in that. And the truth is, the employer knows their pay range for the director of development position. Had she said that position, that could have created a couple different responses. Well, maybe you don't have the skill sets that we need to have you in this position. And secondarily, are we grossly overpaying this position? So what I helped her answer, if that question would have come up, and it did not, would be to say, I would love to be compensated based on the pay range that you believe my skill sets will contribute to your organization. And I'll say that again. I would love to be compensated based on the pay range that you believe that my skill sets will contribute to your organization. And that has nothing to do with her past experience. It has nothing to do with whether or not they believe her skill sets are going to be a fit yet. They're interviewing her, so they're going to make that determination. It's throwing that gracefully back to the people who are interviewing her and hiring her to provide an offer based on what they've already expected this position to make, right?
And I think you can also look at, there are salary surveys out there of what ranges of pay can be.
Mhm.
So, even if it's a glass door, what does a typical person in this type of position look like to make? And at least come in for, especially if you don't really know, if you say you're making a lateral change and between industries, or say a director of development at a small nonprofit versus a hospital are two different pay ranges.
Completely.
The one at the nonprofit, that like the small, like a Boys and Girls Clubs, may have done way more than the one that's at the hospital, but their pay is different. So yeah, I don't believe that the small, what you made previously is relevant. And a lot of people feel that it can be not, this is what they can say is holding some people back, because if you don't know how to get beyond that, like if you took an entry level or a lower pay position to get your foot in the door somewhere, it's very hard to make up that gap.
Completely. It's not going to be made up in that organization. Usually you'd have to take another leap. Sue has raised her hand. Sue, what would you love to share?
Yeah, I had a question of, I'm at almost the top of my pay range.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to go above that, I would need a change in title. But I am a few years out from retirement, and I don't want to move up the ladder at this point.
Mm-hmm.
If I was earlier, if it was earlier in my career, I'd say, yeah, I'll look at that and I'll take that job. So I'm frequently getting asked, don't you want to do this? Don't you want to do that? And really, I love what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to continue to, I feel like I am contributing. I feel like I continue to grow and add benefit to my group. And I get that feedback. So, but my fear is that, someone's going to try to push me, or say, I'm sorry, we can't give you any more money unless you do this. And have you had that experience?
I can see that could be a definite conversation. And it also depends, from my experience, with the organization. And so there are plenty organizations and companies hiring right now. So we stay the course. It sounds as though you understand your value, you understand your compensation, you understand where you'd love to contribute in an organization. And I give you the understanding that whatever you would love and whatever you've designed for your life is absolutely findable. So keep looking, and that trying to push more responsibilities onto a person, we get to have those courageous conversations of understanding what the overall outcome is for multiple roles that are intersecting within that role and responsibility container. And inside an organization, making certain that you have your healthy boundaries and communications with the people that are expecting things from you. It sounds like you've got a pretty good understanding of that for yourself. Linda, what would you add?
I think just be clear and have that conversation that where you feel you can add the most value is doing what you're currently doing, and that by changing, you're actually going to decrease your value to the company because you're not going to bring that enthusiasm and passion. And I think a lot of times, and I know I have had this conversation with my husband and some of his coworkers that they're fabulous at what they do, but they don't want to go to be a manager or vice president because then they're not doing what they love and actually what they're really good at. I think, it's okay to actually broach the conversation with someone and say, I really want to stay here. I really want to finish my career here. At a certain point, I'm going to need X. What do I need to do to get there? Mm-hmm. How do we work together so that you're using the most of mine? The worst that can happen is that they say no. Right. And I think sometimes we get so scared of not having those conversations that the company doesn't know either.
Right. Another piece or perspective on that, Linda, is that we can ask our company or our direct management to say, help me understand what value you see and you believe that I bring to the role and to the responsibilities here and to the organization. So I can hear from you that communication and understand that we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. You know, the companies, they're so big on people trying different roles and moving up and doing all that thing. And so when they get someone like myself who's saying, no, I don't really want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the, you know, I'm not really afraid, you know, that, you know, even if they said, well, we can't use you anymore, you know, I am, like I said, close to retirement, but, you know, I want to be able to say, I'm okay with not moving up the ladder. I'm okay here. And then as you guys suggested, how can we work on this? You know, how can we make it a win for all of us? So
And
thanks.
I think the other piece of it is define, you know, whether you're going out to look for a job or not, create that list of the value that you're bringing to the company that's outside your job description. You know, where have you helped the company to grow? What are, you know, and it can be mentoring other people. It can be the sideways that sometimes are less tangible. And so that you kind of have that list in your head, and I'm sure Tina Marie and her team have talked about creating those lists of wins that you have beside you to say, hey, this is what I'm great at. This is what I know I've been doing, and have that conversation. And it's not an ultimatum. That's
Right.
not where I'm going for. It's, hey, I understand this culture, but this is where I think I'm the most valuable. And you're not, I'm looking at your picture. So, and you said you're close to retirement, so I'm not making any statements. You know, you're not 24. That may not be clear on who they are and what they're looking to do.
Another assumption that could be coming through is that they assume that people want to move up a ladder. You know,
Exactly.
that's definitely a program within many leadership minds. And you can create that clarity that you're absolutely happy where you are and contribute at this level, despite the ladder rungs above you.
and share that you're still learning. I think that's the other piece that's exciting to hear from you is, hey, I am learning and growing, and here's some of the things that I've seen over the last 3 months for myself. And I would want to continue to have those opportunities in this way.
That's awesome. This has been such a great call. I know, Shilpa, you have a question at the end of our time, unfortunately. And what you could do, Shilpa, is go ahead and send that question. I'll get that over to Linda. We'll answer that. We want to direct you over to the Bonfire Inner Circle. If you're not utilizing that network there and that resource for yourself as a Bonfire client, if you're connected to our community in any way, it's a beautiful resource to have these collaborative conversations and tap into the resources of our experts like Linda that are here to help you as well. So Linda, thank you for being our guest.
Thank you. This was fun.
And if we could direct people over to your website, where would you like them to stay in touch with you?
Actually, if they want to shoot, we can shoot them out an email, but we send out TAP tips and in a newsletter. So if they send a note to info@taponline.net, we'll get them signed up. And you know, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. It's 2 P's in the TAP.
Oh, that's right.
Spelling counts when it comes to emails.
Yeah, it does.
It does, unfortunately. So yeah, check it out through there. And you know, if, as Tina Marie said, if you have any questions, we're here to help. We think there's a lot of value in for people that want to work part-time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I don't know
you.
why I have, okay, I'm having an echo. Sorry about that. Thank you so much. And then also mark your calendars, please, for the Bonfire Connect that happens at the end of the month on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central. We'll see you all there and have great times with your coach, and then also connect on the Bonfire Inner Circle. Thank you so much, Linda. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.